What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Hog Hoops Live. I am your host, Curtis Wilkerson. You can find me over at HawgSports.com alongside Trey Biddy, Danny West, and Andrew Ellis. Arkansas held serve last night with a top 20 victory over Missouri. We're going to break that down. Why it was such an important game for the Hogs on their home floor. We're going to look ahead to a road trip against Auburn. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. That's just the tip of the iceberg today. We got a lot going on. Should be a fun show. Looking forward to it. Let's get started. All right, like always, you know all the ways to watch and listen at this point. We certainly do appreciate any of those likes, thumbs up, 5-star reviews. Those things really do help us a ton when it comes to expanding our reach. We want to get out there to all the Razorback fans, so we definitely appreciate those things. Sorry for the weird start time today. I usually do these, late morning after a game, so I appreciate everybody who's tuning in live. Obviously we had a late game in Bud Walton Arena Wednesday night. The assumption was, that we would have a press conference sometime on Thursday to preview the Auburn game, since the team was traveling down there on Friday. But, it took a while for us to get that time. We weren't really sure. We had it at 1:30, so I wanted to do the show afterwards because, I didn't want to sit in front of this camera and ramble on for an hour only to get a bunch of new info from Eric Musselman right afterwards. I think it looks like I made a great decision because the last, hour or two has been kind of nuts, really. So let's touch on maybe the new developments here first. It starts with Nick Smith Jr., right? That's how we start every show. Obviously, unless you're, kind of living under a rock, literally, you know that Nick's been out indefinitely, right? Knee management, we talked about it. But he was not with the team on the bench for the Missouri game on Wednesday. A spokesperson for the program told us before tip-off that he was seeing a specialist for that knee. So we didn't ask Eric Musselman about it last night after the Missouri game because we knew we were going to get him on Thursday today. And we did ask him about it today, and he shed a little bit of light on the situation. What Muss said is, quote, he has seen a specialist, remains in L.A., so he's out in Cali for that. I would assume that that will be the case for the next, not to speculate, but that's probably going to be the case throughout the rest of the month. And then where it is at that point, probably reevaluate it, but certainly not the expectation that he'll play in the next few games. So sound like at the very least the rest of the month of January, maybe we don't expect to see Nick Smith. And who knows what will happen if they decide to reevaluate at that point. We did ask Muss, based on his comments, if he meant that Nick was going to remain in California through the end of the month, which I feel is pertinent with, classes starting at the U of A here pretty soon, to which he responded, no, I'm saying that we can anticipate that he will not be playing. So there you go. Right. Again, I feel bad for the kid. I feel bad for the fans. I feel bad for the program. It's an unfortunate situation all around. Personally, I'm exhausted from it. And this news today coming from Muss, it doesn't really give me a whole lot of optimism that he'll eventually return. But, we've just got to wait and see how this thing plays out. I do like, we've had indefinite. It kind of still sounds that way, but at least, we were given a little bit of an update on what was going on, right? Out to see a specialist in L.A. Doesn't sound like we're going to see him at the bare minimum through the rest of the month of January. So there you go. Literally while all this was happening, my phone's going bonkers during the press conference because Texas finally decided they're going to fire Chris Beard, right? So that leads to two immediate questions if you're a Razorback fan. One, has Ron Holland already flipped to Arkansas? And two, are the Longhorns going to go after Eric Musselman? With Ron, a couple days ago, he put out a tweet just kind of reaffirming his commitment to Texas and interim head coach Rodney Terry, which I thought was probably the most, pertinent information that came from that tweet. I have to imagine that his family had a pretty strong hunch of how this was going to play out with Beard. I don't know that for a fact. That's an assumption, but I have a feeling they had a pretty good idea of what was going on there. But listen, it's far from guaranteed that Texas retains Rodney Terry at the end of the season, whether that's just by, removing the interim tag and naming him a permanent head coach or even keeping him on staff if they hire a new guy. man, there's just a lot of uncertainty there that has to be considered. I would hate to be in the situation that the Hollands are in right now. You thought you had this wrapped up, that he was all set and good to go for his future. Man, and it's just a storm going down in Austin right now. So, as of right now, he remains committed to Texas, signed at Texas. If he decides to open it up and get out of that national letter of intent, Arkansas would welcome him with open arms. A word of advice, though, to Arkansas fans, please do not continuously, tweet gifs of Chris Beard in pinstripes at Holland. All right, just don't do that. His mom's already put out a tweet. She's kind of respectfully asking folks not to do that and to kind of refrain from tagging them and all that nonsense. Like I said, it's a tough situation for them to be in, so be aware of that, right? It's funny, we laugh at the expense of Texas or any other rivals, but it does impact other people in big ways, and they don't want that. And if you're an Arkansas fan that wants to get them to flip, you might avoid that one a little bit, right? As for Muss, it appears that he might have some sort of non-compete in his contract within the SEC. I don't know the details on that or how easy that kind of thing is to get around. I need to, now that job is open in Texas, I need to kind of go and maybe dig deeper into Muss's contract and see what the details are. I also don't know how it would impact Texas, which is currently not in the SEC, but they're coming soon, right? It's maybe an interesting thing to keep an eye on there. But that said, you can bet your ass that Eric Musselman is going to be on the short list of candidates mentioned. I mean, in fact, he already is. Right? Our man Eric Bossi over at 24/7 Sports, he put out a list of 8 potential candidates already. He probably had that one waiting, but Muss is on it, right? And that's no surprise at all. Here's what Bossi had to say about that, though. Let me pull it up. He says, whether or not Eric Musselman would have even the slightest desire to leave Arkansas is a fair question. He's got the Razorbacks rolling. He has all the resources in the world, and by all accounts, he's happy with the monster program that he's building in Fayetteville. He's likely a long shot. He's also a phone call that 100% has to be made. I agree with this. Musselman isn't just a tremendous coach and proven program builder. He's a one-man marketing tsunami. Beard was very good about promoting the Texas brand. However, Musselman is probably the single best promoter of his program that there is in all of college basketball. His understanding of media, both social and traditional, has been a huge asset for him. Muss can recruit too. He was right there in the mix of things with Ron Holland before he picked Texas, and his 2022 class featured a pair of 5-star players in Anthony Black and Jordan Walsh who call Texas home. Another thing to be aware of. Also, he certainly knows how to keep talent at home, keeping the likes of 2022's number 1 player Nick Smith and current Golden State Warrior Moses Moody in Arkansas. Outside of this, he's a wizard when it comes to the transfer portal. By any standard, Musselman would be a home run hire. Can Texas get him? Again, it would be a tough sell given all he has at Arkansas, but again, you have to at least try. I thought that was well written there by Bossi. Man, never a dull moment, You guys happy that I waited to start the show? I am. I feel like that's some pertinent stuff. Sheesh. All right. Let's talk a little basketball, though, right? Because Arkansas just picked up a big win. Number 13 Hogs, number 20 Missouri Tigers. That was the first SEC home opener for the Razorbacks that featured a pair of ranked teams. Arkansas got the win, 74-68. Guys, this was a massive win, in my opinion, for Arkansas for many reasons. I mean, there's a reason why Muss called this a must-win after the game. He doesn't just throw that term around for the heck of it. I think for starters, you let one slip away on the road at LSU. We know how hard it is to win games in other SEC venues, but that goes for Bud Walton Arena as well, right? So the Hogs needed a bounce back, and they needed to set the tone by protecting home court. And they did both of those things. Check, check. You certainly didn't want to fall to 0-2 in SEC play with a trip to Auburn and a home game with Alabama on deck. I mean, that's not an easy stretch. Yes, I get it. Arkansas's proven the last couple years that, it can overcome those slow starts and the downswings. That doesn't mean that they have to put themselves in that position every year, right? That's the progression of a program. Avoid things like that. I've talked about it a ton on this show. Despite everything that's gone wrong, I guess you could say, or all the adversity, I guess is a better way to put it, that Arkansas has gone through, they've really put themselves in great position. They've avoided those ugly losses, those lengthy downswings. Good. Check again, right? And then, just as soon as folks start, kind of peeping the resume a little bit, questioning Arkansas, that's what happens after a loss. What happens? The Hogs go and pick up a top 20 win over a team that has exploded onto the national scene of late. Missouri has become kind of the darling of college basketball with those big wins over Illinois and Kentucky. They've got the young new coach that's got the program rolling. A lot of eyes were on Missouri, and a lot of people were starting to question the Hogs. Boy, they really answered the bell. I think it was a big win. The second-ranked victory of the year for the Razorbacks. It joins San Diego State and Maui. It's interesting. Arkansas had a 17-point comeback in this game. That's the largest deficit they've come back from this season, aside from 13 against San Diego State. So they had to battle back in both of these. But Arkansas, they're now up to 4 wins in the first 2 quadrants. That's a good place to be, at this point in January with most of the conference slate ahead of you, and no bad losses. So the Hogs are really strong in all the metrics here, which is what you want to see. But and listen, all those things are great, but I think, this game also mattered internally, and that might be the most important factor in all of this to me. Think about the last couple weeks. What have we been hearing? This isn't the Arkansas team we expected. Too many injuries. Their ceiling is lower. They can't overcome the loss of Brazil and Nick Smith. Hey, listen, I'll be the first one to admit that this team has a much different look, than it did with 2 future draft picks who they kind of built everything around. I get it. These guys are still very, very talented. They just needed to prove it in this league against a good team, and they did that by knocking off Missouri. So there's work to be done. There's a long road ahead, but I think it was a great step in the right direction and really like a confidence and momentum boost that I think this group kind of needed. Maybe they can take off now. We'll see. But it was far from easy, right? The game was wild. Mentioned it, but Arkansas had to rally back from 17 down to win this thing. I think it was like 25-8 at one point in the first half. Man, it looked rough. I think it was worse than the first half at LSU for a stretch there offensively. Missouri's zone defense, it wasn't that good, but the Hogs really struggled with it. It was just kind of awkward, maybe. I mean, you could tell that Muss had probably really been on their asses about, not chucking so many threes like they did at LSU. So, the Hogs were really trying to attack the gaps and get to the rim, but Missouri just really had it packed in. Like there were no lanes for Arkansas to go through. There were some self-inflicted wounds there with turnovers. Even the open shots just didn't really look comfortable for a long stretch there. And the second half was great. We'll talk about that in a sec. But I thought the end of the first half was huge. Huge. Jordan Walsh, I thought, really brought some life into the building. When Arkansas was down there, he got a couple of tough baskets. Got the lid off of the rim. He was really battling on the glass, playing just with aggression, with toughness. It got the crowd going. They noticed that. That's the thing I love about Bud Walton Arena. The fans understand the game. They appreciate those little things. Guys getting after it, diving for loose balls, getting on the offensive glass, playing with physicality. It got the crowd going a little bit, and Arkansas needed that. And then Muss had turned to Joseph Pinion off the bench. He flattened out that zone. Even when his first couple shots weren't falling, it changed the way that Missouri had to defend the Razorbacks because he's just a threat that has to be respected. Nobody else, quite frankly, in that moment was. But I think it was an 8-0 run there to close the half that cut it to 7. It was 34-27 at the half. I felt at that point that Arkansas was going to win the game. I thought the way that they closed the first half was key in them getting over the hump. But I'm really, really impressed with the adjustments that Muss made at halftime, right? The man's a great recruiter, great marketer, everything Bossy said in that article, right? But he can coach his tail off too, X's and O's. Made some great adjustments. Ricky Council's, his plus-minus at halftime was -18. Minus 18. That is insanely bad. So what it must do, he benched him. And he started Pinion for the second half. That's a bold move to make. Savvy move to make. Not anybody would just bench their leading scorer like that for a freshman who really, hasn't played that much. But it worked out. JP continued to play with great confidence. Again, he was forcing Missouri to defend differently than it wanted to. His presence was key in there. And then Ricky got the wake-up call that he needed. I mean, he promptly checks back in and explodes for 21 points in the final 15 minutes of the game. Arkansas doesn't win without those contributions from Council. And, so that was a personnel decision, but, like I said, the chalk matters too. Arkansas went away from that zone offensive attack that wasn't really working, and they went to their open offense. It's something they would run against a man-to-man defense. It's another savvy move by Muss, a lot of middle pick and roll, and you can do that against the zone, and that opens some things up. It helped a lot. It changed the trajectory of what they were trying to do on the offensive end of the floor, plus they sped the game up. Which is something that you need to do when the half-court offense is sputtering a little bit. Speed it up. Find ways to get out in transition. They did a good job with that. And for what feels like the first time all year, they really made a concerted effort to attack the offensive glass. They're so long, so athletic. It's been weird that they haven't been on the offensive glass maybe at a higher rate than they have been, but they were in this game. They had an advantage in size. 15 offensive boards were huge. That's a lot of extra possessions, second chance points, all those things mattered. So, the first half was ugly, but Arkansas shot 61.5% after the break. That's really, really good. It helped them overcome 17 turnovers, a little sloppy, especially in the backcourt, but they found a way. And the defense was solid again. Look, they held the nation's third best scoring offense 20 points under their average. That's really good. Knocking down 10 threes per game. They only made 6 of 21 in this one. Again, held them below their average. Demoy Hodge, Kobe Brown, the two leading scorers from Missouri, they were combining for more than 32 points per game. They were held to 17 total. Clamped them up pretty good. Defense carries. You can bring that every night because a lot of it is effort-based. Yeah, there are rotations, assignments, ball screen coverages, all that things. But in a lot of ways, defense is just about effort and getting after it. And you can bring that every game, even when the scoring isn't there. And I think that's something that we're going to see from Arkansas. It's been consistent so far this year. I was really impressed with the way Council responded. I thought Andrew Ellis wrote a nice article on his performance over at HawgSports, and he really struggled at LSU. 5 of 19 from the field. Had some opportunities late in that game to maybe get Arkansas over the top. Couldn't convert. The first half with Missouri was not good. You get benched, but he didn't pout. He just took his medicine. He took over in the second half. He had 21 of his game-high 25 in the final 15 minutes of that game. 5 of 6 at the free throw line in the final minute, which was big because he missed some down in Baton Rouge. So I just thought he showed a lot of grit and leadership. That was a great bounce-back effort within the game from Ricky Council. Not a lot of people have that mental toughness and that resolve to be able to do that, but he did. I thought it was interesting, when we asked him after the game about, just his mindset and having to come off the bench in the second half. And he quickly reminded us, hey, I came off the bench all year last year at Wichita State. Yeah, he did. He was the 6th man of the year in his conference, so that's not necessarily something new to him. Joseph Pinion, let's go, man. We kind of talked about it last week, when JP only got a short look in that LSU game. Was he ready for that moment? I don't know. But we also talked about how just kind of given the makeup of the roster for the Razorbacks currently, it might just have to be a baptism by fire thing, right? You have to have a guard who can come spell guys off the bench. So why not see what he's got? And man, he really delivered. So impressed. Career high in minutes. He had 13 points, a zone buster. He wasn't shaky. He wasn't timid at all. Thought he looked calm, cool, and collected in there. He knocked down 3 3-pointers, even the ones that he missed. Just that threat, like I said, it kind of changes everything that Missouri was trying to do. You have to account for that. It made life easier for the other players on the floor for the Razorbacks. Defensively, yes, there are a few times where it showed that, he has work to do. Absolutely. He's not alone on this team, but it's not like he's just getting cooked out there. He had his moments, but to me, there is no reason why Joseph Pinion can't be an adequate defender right now against, the opponent's least threatening guard. You have lockdown defenders on the perimeter. You don't need to put him on the other team's point guard or the other team's leading scorer. No, it doesn't have to be the case. I think he's strong for a freshman, and he plays hard, and he's smart. So, I'm really starting to come along to the idea, and that's not being a prisoner of the moment, but you're starting to see a pattern with what he provided at Asheville. Got his feet wet a little bit there against LSU, but hey, this is against a top 20 team, in front of 19,000 strong. And for him to go out and deliver the way that he did, you start to feel more optimistic that he can be a consistent piece for this team off the bench, especially with the right matchups. So I'll be anxious to see, what happens down in Auburn. Can he take the next step by translating that stuff to the road? Maybe. What about when teams are going man instead of zone? Will we get his look? And when teams start to run him off the three-point line, how comfortable is he putting it on the deck and taking it to the rim? Or shot faking, taking a dribble, and getting it over to the next guy. He looked pretty good against Missouri, but we'll see how it translates moving forward. But he's definitely, in my opinion, earned some more tick and could really help this team who, quite frankly, we didn't know where they stood from a depth standpoint 24 hours ago. And we really don't now because it's been so up and down and inconsistent. But he seems like a guy that could give you something that you don't have on a regular basis, which is consistent three-point shooting. So we'll see. 5 turnovers for Devo. I mean, he's been actually really good in that department most of the season. So too many there against Missouri. It's just a classic Devo game, man. Like shot selection, it was not good in the first half. I thought he really started to get into that mid-range after the break, found a groove. I think he was 4 of 4 shooting in the second half. So he wound up with 10 points, 5 of 10 from the field. Cool. You'll take that. I don't think that's too many shots for Devo with the roster like it currently is. You shoot 50%, great. He also had 5 assists, 5 rebounds. He really did a nice job of locking up Hodge. He's just a guy that makes winning plays. And like I've said on here a million times, when I do the player grade story, I have such a hard time with Devo. I was telling people on our message board, like, I'm up at 2 o'clock at night working on this, and I'm texting Andrew Ellis. He's always at the games with me. I'm like, dude, how do we grade Devo? Like he's made all these plays that contribute to winning, but man, he just does things that make you want to rip your hair out. But that's just the kind of player he is. And I thought he was really solid for Arkansas. Eric Musselman was really complimentary of him. So yeah, cut down the turnovers a little bit, but man, everything else that he did, I thought he was really solid in this one. Jordan Walsh and Mekhi Mitchell, man, 2 guys, I felt that they both could have had double-doubles, but foul trouble impacted their minutes. I thought they both played well when they were in there. I spoke to Walsh and the impact that he made, especially, late in the first half when Arkansas kind of started to claw back into things. I'd like to see Mekhi get some more touches, personally. He's good in there. He's athletic. He's a good passer. He can finish. I do think, he would probably benefit from just going straight up and being aggressive, maybe dunking on somebody's head. He's that powerful and that athletic. But sometimes he kind of takes that extra dribble, gives the defender time to reset. Whatever, those are small things, but I think he could be a real weapon for Arkansas offensively to go along with what he does on the defensive end of the floor. He's been a really nice piece for the Razorbacks. So, you got to stay out of foul trouble, though. Kamani, I thought, did a really good job in his minutes. I think he played about 20. He worked really hard on Kobe Brown, and that involved defending some on the perimeter, which is one thing you've wondered about with Kamani. How's he going to hold up when teams drag him out on the perimeter? And Kobe Brown is not a super athletic guard or anything like that, but he's a stretch forward that can put it on the deck and shoot threes. I thought Kamani did a good job there, and he was physical with him inside, took a charge on him, and then he gobbles up the rebounds. He had 8 rebounds, couple putbacks, so that's what you need from him. It's good. Anthony Black, a little bit uneven again, used 2 of 7 from the field, 5 assists, which is good, 4 turnovers, not so good. To me with AB right now, and maybe I'm wrong, but it kind of reminds me of early in the season when he was just kind of feeling his way through some things, showing flashes, and then he eventually really busted out and started playing great. Well, he hasn't been bad, but we know that he's got more in the tank than what we've seen, the last couple games here. So I wonder if it could be a similar pattern, as he adjusts to SEC play and the way teams are defending him and the team. They're seeing a lot of zone. So maybe he's due for a big bust out here soon. I think it's coming. He did hit a huge three late in this game. Missouri, to their credit, Arkansas, kind of goes on a big run there. I think they pushed the lead out to 8. A lot of teams would have folded there, but I do got to give the Tigers credit. They battled back. They cut it to 3 there late. I want to say it was 66-63 maybe, in about the final 3 minutes. And AB hit a huge three-pointer that extended the lead back out to 6. You kind of felt like maybe it was a dagger. It was a big shot in that game. But I really like seeing him get to the floater. He knocked one of those down, and listen, I think that could be an important thing for him moving forward. I like that. At his size as a point guard, I feel like the mid-range area could really be a sweet spot for him to take advantage of. And, I do agree with what many others have been mentioning, in that maybe best-case scenario for Arkansas is that Anthony Black gets more aggressive looking to score and hunting his shot. Similar to how he attacked in Maui. I'm not saying he's got to score 26 points for Arkansas to win every night, but I sure would like to see him in double-digit shot attempts per game. And I think he could do that while still impacting things the way that he does, as a distributor, a plus rebounder at his position, and a good defender. So I'll be anxious to see if he gets a little bit more aggressive here moving forward. Against Missouri, he didn't necessarily have to because you had guys who came off the bench and provided pop, like Pinion. Got a little bit from Kamani. That's good. A little give and take. All right. It's kind of interesting, right? Arkansas loses at LSU. Then they beat Missouri. Now it's off to Auburn. So Tigers, right? The Tiger hunt continues for the Razorbacks. This is going to be a very, very interesting matchup, I think, Saturday night at Auburn. I'm not sure what to make of them. They're ranked number 22 in the country for now. They are good. They're a good team. But they're not as good as they were last year. And I think this is a vulnerable team. You saw it last night when they got beat fairly handily at Georgia, who's, I think, better than people expected. But still, if you're a ranked team, that's a game that you're expected to go win. They didn't. I think they lost by 10. So on the flip side of that, though, just like we say a team better be 10 points better than Arkansas to win in Bud Walton, the same could be said with Auburn, I think, at Neville Arena. They're a different team at home, man. It's not as big of a venue as Bud Walton, but it's an awesome atmosphere. And they get the job done in there. They've won 26 games in a row at home. That's a lot. For reference, Arkansas has won 17 in a row at Bud. They won against Missouri last night, January 4th, and so that made it 1 year since their last loss. That just utterly disappointing game against Vanderbilt when they lost by a point there. But 26 in a row at home for Auburn. So, it's going to be a big-time challenge for the Hogs, and you have to add in, I think, the motivation that Auburn is going to have given how that last meeting between these teams went down. I asked Muss about it today. He didn't take the bait. But, if you think back to that game, Auburn was, they're number 1 in the country. They're rolling. Arkansas kind of took exception to them dancing on the logo at midcourt before the game. The Hogs take them down in overtime. Devo delivers the tee bag to Wendell Green, and the fans storm the floor. Like, it was crazy. It was a lot. So, it was an incredible moment in Arkansas basketball history, but imagine being on the other end of that. Put yourself in those shoes for a sec. I have to believe that it left a sour taste in the mouth of Auburn's players, their coaches, their fans. And, while Arkansas is a team that has flipped a lot of the roster, Devo's back, Kamani's back, Muss is there. But Auburn has a ton of returners on that team. Honestly, all of their contributors outside of their center, for the most part, are returning pieces who are going to remember that. And they're going to remember what happened when the last time they played Arkansas. So, I think you better go ahead and settle in and believe that Arkansas is going to get the business in this road environment on Saturday, and I love it. I can't wait to see how they respond to this. What a great opportunity for a young team. I feel like some of these guys thrive on it. That's one thing we've talked about with Arkansas at different points this season. They talk a little bit. They chirp a little bit. They've got some swagger about them. Now LSU is one thing, but you're going to go into a hostile environment playing a team who's got a chip on their shoulder from last year, against a fan base that's known for being rowdy, and they've been waiting for a long time for Arkansas to come in there. They've had this game circled. How are the Hogs going to respond? Man, I can't wait for this game. I'm probably more excited about this game than I have been any other all season. Like I said, a lot of returners, the same guards as last season for Auburn. Talented, undersized, inefficient, but also streaky, You think about Zeb Jasper, Wendell Green, Katie Johnson. These are all guys who are capable of erupting or shooting them right out of a game. You never know. I think Katie Johnson is one to really watch in their home arena because he's the kind of guy that really feeds off of the crowd. Right, he gets energized by that stuff. And what worries me about him, he's not as thick and physically strong as Trey Hannibal, who gave Arkansas so much fits from LSU. But he does have that kind of duck the head, wrecking ball, drive to the rim through somebody's chest mentality. Sort of the Hogs going to be able to respond to that a little bit better than they did in Baton Rouge. We'll see. Wendell Green's a guy, he's got the ultimate green light from deep, even though he's not necessarily shooting it that well, this season. Auburn's not a high percentage shooting team from three this year. I think they're under 30%. Some familiar faces on the wing with those guys. A couple Arkansas natives. Alan Flanagan, you guys remember him? He's healthy now. He had that Achilles issue last year. Never really looked the same, even once he came back, but I think he's getting a little bit closer to form this season. Chris Moore, we remember him. Well, Arkansas thought they were going to get him in 2020. He winds up going to Auburn. He's really been a bit player for him, but he's been starting a lot at the three. West Memphis kid. Kind of surprising because I thought he was definitely more traditional power forward, but he's done a good job. Jalen Williams, the other Jay Will, right, for them. He's turned into a nice stretch forward for him. I think he's their best three-point shooter percentage-wise. But then, it's all those returners, but then it's that center spot, man, because Walker Kessler, he ain't walking back through that door. Neither is Jabari Smith. But Auburn, hey, they're still one of the best rim-protecting teams in the country. And Janai Broome, Morehead State transfer, he's really been a key pickup for them at the center spot in the portal. He's averaging a near double-double, blocking a ton of shots. Dylan Cardwell is a returner to be aware of. He's taken a step forward this season. Really a high-energy guy, emotional player. He kind of serves as his primary backup, but that duo, they do a really nice job of challenging shots at the rim at a high level. So, can an Arkansas team that I think needs to feast on paint points really attack those guys, finish on them or over them and draw fouls and get to the free throw line? And I think that might be, the key to the game, along with how they handle the atmosphere, because I do think that Arkansas can find success on the defensive end guarding Auburn. Defense travels, and we have no reason to believe that it won't in this situation. But, definitely a tall task ahead. Like I said, 26 in a row at home for Auburn. Man, it would be awesome if Arkansas could break that streak. We'll see what happens. All right. Let's see here. Let's run over to the comments and see what we got going on. Again, I appreciate everyone who's tuned in live. I know it's like 4 hours later than normal, but I'm glad I waited, because we got some good info from Muss, and, the Chris Beard stuff broke, so that was all important. But let's see here. Cody L. James, my man Curtis, Happy New Year, boss. Dropped that Ron Allen info you had now that Beard is fired. Yeah, so that's what we're waiting on. It was interesting. I didn't necessarily expect that he was going to put that out there and just kind of reaffirm his commitment. Like I said earlier, I thought it was interesting that, he kind of threw his support behind Rodney Terry, who, assistant coaches, listen, they play a huge role in the recruitment process. It's not always just the head coach, but I thought that was interesting. And, now I just wonder what's going to happen. It's one thing to do that. But then when things get real, and Chris Beard is actually fired and he's gone, there's no coming back from that. Does that change, maybe how they felt? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Then, like I said, when it's an interim tag with a high-profile position like Texas, you just wonder what they're going to do with that. And when they would want to make a decision, you would think they would open it up and not remove the interim tag. Texas is playing really well under Terry. They did just lose to Kansas State. I think this is their first loss since he took over. But they've got a really good team. They're ranked in the top 10. What if they make it to the Elite Eight or something? They remove the tag. They bring in a high-profile name that, maybe Ron and his camp are happy with. Do they keep Terry on as an assistant? You just don't know, but I just wonder if they're gonna wait it out to see, because there's some risk involved with that too. So, I will be anxious to see if they make another statement. They're pretty good about that. Ron Holland's mom is awesome as a PR person. She's like a great spokesperson, and when she tweets, I've always paid attention. She put it out there earlier and was like, "Hey, please, we ask you, don't tag us in everything about this. We know what's going on." And they've been monitoring the situation, so we'll see what happens there next. But if he opens it up, you better believe Arkansas is going to be in there. Drew Bethard says, sounds like Nick Smith won't happen this year. Yeah, it stinks. I know like I said, it's just an unfortunate situation, man, for him, for the team that's had such just high expectations, just centered around that, that caliber of player. And then obviously the fans, I know it's frustrating. I know I get frustrated sometimes because I get asked about it like 600 times a day. But I always try to catch myself and be like, dude, if you were in that position, you would want to know more too. And so I do understand that. I wish that we could get some kind of finality on it, good or bad, but I think that this, it's just going to be one of those deals that kind of drags on. So we'll see. But what we do know is, it's probably not going to happen, at least for the rest of the month. So we'll see. Z Beeler, my man, says, "What's up, Curtis? Great win last night." Yeah, it was good. It was a big one. Drew says, "Who cares if they go after Musselman? They won't get him." What they might do by going after Muss is get him a raise at Arkansas, which I think he's earned anyway. Z Beeler says, "I thought our second half offense was really good against the zone. We really got to the middle of the paint and exploited it." Yep, I agree. Completely different look, different vibe in the second half. Looked way more comfortable. It's kind of becoming a pattern of, maybe a little bit slow out of the gates, but then really figuring things out in the second half. Dustin Hoofman says, "I love seeing Walsh's game grow each week, scoring threat and strong defender." Yeah, he's really coming along. He really is. I thought, especially once I went back and watched the game again, I thought he was really kind of an underrated performer at LSU. Nearly a double-double. It was just such a frustrating game, and he was 1 of 8 from 3, I guess 1 of 7, if you take away that half-court heave at the end. Man, but he really made an impact, and I thought that was kind of a breakout moment. It was big for him to have that performance on the road, even in a loss. I thought he was well on his way to kind of doubling down on that, but foul trouble got him. I don't know about all the calls, but, it has been a little bit of an issue, a common theme maybe. We'll see if he can kind of avoid that moving forward, because Arkansas is a better team when he's on the floor. That's for sure. Let's see. Cody L. James says, "Talking about making fun on social media about Beard, you should have seen some of the things Mizzou fans said about TB and Walsh." Yeah, I saw some threads that were started about some of that. I haven't looked at it. That stuff makes me roll my eyes. I hate that. But I also understand it's just part of it, and when you see that, it's usually a loud, minority that's trying to speak for, a majority of a fan base that wouldn't do something like that. Let's see here. I lost my place. Man, these comments have gotten weird. They just pop up at different spots, and it scrolls me back to the top. I don't know what's going on. Here we are. Andrew Ellis, my guy, says, how good would Arkansas be if fouls didn't exist? Well, That's a good question, because it would be nice if they would stay out of foul trouble. Especially the guys we just mentioned, like Makai and Jordan Walsh, and they definitely, while the depth is taking a hit, boy, you really want to avoid some foul trouble, don't you? But on the other end, they're so reliant on getting free throw attempts and getting to the line. How much would they score if they didn't have that? So, anyway. Scrolling through here. Yeah, man, I keep on losing my place. I think I got to most of them, but sorry if I missed your comment. I don't know what's going on with these things. I know Trey used to have a problem with that. I'm gonna have to ask him how he was able to keep his place. It's irritating. But anyway, pretty good show. Better late than never, right? Thought it was a good one. Looking ahead, I think that, Saturday, it's obviously a road game. I'm not going to Auburn. Man, I wish that I was. So won't be doing a live reaction from out there. But maybe, I think early in the week, maybe on Monday, or Tuesday, it'll be a good idea to maybe hop on and kind of get, a little bit of a preview for this Alabama game. Because win or lose at Auburn, this Alabama game, for the Razorbacks is going to be a big one on the 11th. Musselman versus Oates. There's been some interesting battles, in that series. Arkansas lost that 1-point game in Tuscaloosa last year. So, just like Auburn's probably been waiting for Arkansas to come to their place, Arkansas has probably been waiting for Bama to come over to Fayetteville. So I think that's going to be an interesting one. But, all eyes are going to be on Auburn. I think it's a 7:30 tip on Saturday. Great opportunity for the Razorbacks, so make sure you guys check that one out. Again, appreciate everybody tuning in, whether you're listening live or checking it out later on the YouTube or the podcast. It's been Curtis Wilkerson here with HawgSports.com. Thank you guys. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you next time.